Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will be present Mathematics Learning for Children with Special Needs, Systematic Literature Review. The subject of the presentation includes authors, introduction, methodology, result and discussion, and the last conclusion. And the authors of this article are Dr. Ardhana Januar Mahardhani M.KP, Wahyudi M.Pd, Nurtina Irsad Rusdiani M.Pd, Yulia Wulansari M.Pd, Dr. Sumaji M.Pd, and Avita Nurhidayah M.Pd. Education is necessity for all human beings. With human education, their intellectual and spiritual thinking will be open. Education is not only needed for the development of cognitive abilities. With education, humans can control their emotion and have good character. In addition, with education, humans can do various things for the welfare of their lives. Seeing the importance of education for human life, all humans have the right to get a proper education, regardless of their physical shortcomings, strengths, and limitations. There are two types of blind people, namely the partially blind and the total blind. Blind students have limited vision but can use both hands to write or read braille. Blind students have no boundaries in their minds. Canova understands that some of the difficulties or limitations that arise for blind students in learning mathematics are follows. 1. Generalization, finding similarities in exclusive sports in ordinary existence. And the second, translating sports and moves into mathematical language. And the next, loss of flexibility in troubleshooting and calculations. And translating and transferring three-dimensional objects into two-dimensional icons. A slow learner is a condition of a person who has intellectual potential below that of the average normal person, which causes a person to be slow in learning the material in the process of teaching and learning activities. Slow learners have an IQ in the 7 until 85 range or the 75 until 89 range. So, in general, the intellectual potential of slow learners is in the range of 70 until 90. This study aims to describe the mathematics learning of students with special needs in inclusive schools. Mathematics learning includes the learning process, the learning media used, as well as the challenges or difficulties of students with special needs in learning mathematics. And the next subject is methodology. The author used a method by reviewing, evaluating, identifying and interpreting previous studies through selected articles. The author used the Google Scholar database to find and collect the articles studied. The keyword in the article such were learning mathematics, blind, slow learners, inclusive education, and children with special needs. From the many articles in the Google Scholar database search, the research chose 24 articles that were used as material for reviewing. The writing of this article, where the articles that have been selected are closely related to the keyword used. And the next steps is to group the selected article by grouping the learning outcomes and learning processes for students with special needs, namely blind and slow learners, and the learning media used in the learning. And the last step taken by the researcher is to review and analyze the article, especially on the result of the study, where the article is present on the discussion and conclusion of the study. At the end of the research, the thing that must be done is to compare the result of the research in the article and draw the conclusion. And the next, result and discussion. The learning process is in interaction between students and teacher in teaching and learning activities in a room that has been prepared in such as to achieve learning objectives. In the learning process, the teacher first design or making learning tools. The learning process in the inclusive class has 3 stages. There are design, implementation, and evaluation. In a regular class, the maximum number of students in one class is 20 students, but in an inclusive class, there are a maximum of 7 students in one class. Even an inclusive class, their number of students is one class exceeded the maximum limit. Then teaching and learning activities cannot be carried out. In the inclusive class, there are 2 supervising teachers. The first is the subject teacher who will provide the material, and the second is the special supervisor teacher who will direct and help students with special needs in understanding the learning materials. Included in the learning component are the objects, materials, methods and tools, as well as the assessment of the teaching methods used by the teacher. Almost nothing is wasted because this method brings results in the near future or in a relatively long time. In the process of teaching and learning activities, subject teachers have steps or methods that can be applied in the classroom to make it easier for students to understand the material. These steps or methods are commonly known as learning methods. In the process of learning mathematics for students with special needs, it is important to choose a learning method that is considered effective in accordance with the characteristics of the students. Learning methods cannot be directly applied to students with special needs. The teacher must first analyze the appropriate learning methods to be applied. And then, the difficulty in understanding mathematics lies in the lack of student ability to imagine, so the student cannot understand and work carefully on problem in mathematics. Seeing the urgency mathematics lesson needs to be delivered with good concept and in a way that is easy for students to understand, so that it can be provision for students in everyday life. In delivering mathematical material with good and interesting concept, it is necessary to use a tool, namely learning media. Learning media can be used to create real, effective, and interesting learning conditions. Blind students have visual impairments, while mathematics is an abstract material that cannot be understood by listening alone. Mathematics learning needs to be delivered with something concrete so that there is no misperception for blind students. Likewise, with slow learners, they have learning difficulties in understanding abstract concepts, have learning motivation, and need a little longer time to understand the material and need repetition of material. Therefore, learning media is very important to be in learning mathematics, especially in teaching students with special needs such as blind and slow learners. And the conclusion in this article, it can be concluded that the difference in the mathematics learning process between students with the special needs, various types of blind and slow learners, and regular students lies in the number of students in one class and the supervising teacher in the class and the time of the learning implementation. Students with special needs take longer to understand the material explained by the subject teacher because they require repetition of material repeatedly to understand the material. So, the time for carrying out teaching and learning activities is more than the time used by regular students. Efficient learning media and learning methods greatly affect the learning success of students with special needs as well as the development. Okay, that's all my presentation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.